Well, well, well. They are watching you, not in passing, not casually, but with that sharp, hungry focus that creeps under the skin, that gnaws at their chest in quiet panic. And the thing is, you didn't ask for this attention. You didn't beg for it. You didn't twist yourself into someone else so they could recognize you. You simply walked into your own life, carrying a presence they never predicted, a weight they cannot lift. And suddenly, without any effort, without a word spoken, without explanation, they are trapped by your existence. They can't eat, they can't sleep, they can't think straight. Their routines crumble because your life, your energy, your unapologetic movement through the world is a mirror they never wanted to see themselves reflected in. Every glance they steal, every mental replay, every subtle tracking of your actions is an unconscious confession. You are no longer the person they tried to define, control, or bury. You are something else, and their world is recalibrating around the consequences of that fact, whether they want it to or not. They will pretend to be indifferent in front of others, hiding their trembling behind careful posture and rehearsed expressions. But the truth is written in the microseconds of hesitation, in the split-second twitch of an eye, in the way their voices falter whenever you are mentioned. You became the variable in their life that cannot be accounted for, the equation they never learned to solve. They underestimated you, misjudged your resilience, laughed at the shape of your ambition, but you didn't crumble. You didn't disappear. You didn't perform vulnerability in ways they could twist into weakness. Instead, you grew silently, invisibly, methodically, until your presence alone became a weapon, a force, a constant source of disturbance in the orderly lives they thought they owned. And now every interaction, every observation, every comparison, every memory they replay has a new weight. The recognition that what they wanted to suppress is not only alive, but thriving in ways they can't replicate. You didn't need to confront them directly. You didn't need to seek revenge or speak in ways they could twist against you. Your rise is quiet, deliberate, inevitable in its own rhythm. And that is what terrifies them most. Every small victory you claim, every glance of confidence, every decision executed without hesitation, every subtle shift in your energy is a reflection of the truth they tried to erase. That they can no longer dictate the terms of your existence. They thought you were a minor character in the story of their superiority, someone easily sidelined or discarded. But you became the climax they were never prepared for. And as they scan your life, piece by piece, trying to reconstruct who you have become, they realize there is no blueprint, no predictable path, no instruction manual. They are watching a force that cannot be contained, studied, or owned. And that thought crushes them internally. Every whisper they share, every covert glance, every fake attempt to appear composed is evidence of the panic they cannot process. You have become the unresolved tension in their carefully curated lives. And the frightening part for them is not that you exist. They have seen people exist before, but that your survival, your growth, your energy is proof that everything they built their sense of superiority on is hollow. They thrived on the idea that they controlled perception, that their judgment determined your boundaries, that your failures would reaffirm their pride. But their assumptions were incorrect, and each time they are reminded that you did not falter, did not collapse, did not conform to their imagined limits, they feel the subtle, corrosive collapse of their identity. You are not their reflection anymore. You are a new standard, one they can observe, but will never reach. They try to rationalize it. They tell themselves it's coincidence, luck, timing, randomness. But even in those moments, they are scanning your life, analyzing your words, replaying your decisions, tracking your growth, all while pretending detachment. They cannot stop. They are addicted, not in the sense of admiration, but in the sense of compulsion, the way a wound cannot ignore the air around it. Your presence has become the gravity that they orbit unwillingly, a pulse they cannot match, a fire they cannot extinguish. And every time you move with confidence, every time you make choices that are unapologetically yours, it's like a hammer hitting the fragile glass of their ego. They are haunted not by what you did to them directly, but by the reflection of their own inadequacy that your existence exposes. You are the unsolvable problem they can't step away from, the reality they cannot rewrite, the energy that cannot be neutralized. You didn't ask for this power. You didn't seek domination. You simply survived. You clawed through the expectation that you would vanish, fold, or conform. You took what they projected onto you. The ridicule, the disregard, the quiet dismissals, and alchemized it into something they cannot mimic. Presence, clarity, precision, self-possession. And that is what compels them. That is what drives them to observe, to track, to replicate, to obsess in subtle, quiet ways. Every move they make is a reflection of the space you occupy in their mind. Every word they speak is colored by comparison. Every plan they enact is weighed against the knowledge that you exist beyond their comprehension. And they are terrified of the energy you wield effortlessly, without announcement, without performance, without needing recognition, because it's raw, and it's real, and it is devastating in its truth. Their routines are altered because your life is a measure they cannot escape. When you take a step forward, it forces them to consider their own trajectory, their own limitations, their own choices. When you smile, they are reminded of victories they never earned. When you make a decision without hesitation, they are reminded of the indecision that controls their days. When you breathe and move in alignment with your truth, they are reminded of the compromises they continue to accept. And because they cannot admit to these insecurities, because acknowledgement would dismantle the careful facade they maintain, they become obsessed with tracking, analyzing, mimicking, questioning. Every screen refresh, every silent check, every casual comment becomes part of a ritual they can't escape. You are the pivot on which their perception teeters, and that truth is eating them alive. And yet, you don't respond. You don't address them. You don't justify your growth. You don't dramatize your evolution. You continue in silence, in calm, in focus, building a life that is irreducible and undeniable. And that is where the terror begins for them. They cannot control you. They cannot predict you. They cannot use your actions to feed their pride. They cannot insert themselves into your journey to claim victory. You exist outside their scripts, outside their expectations, outside the narrative they attempted to construct around your life. And with each passing day, their obsession grows because the very thing they feared, your independence, your power, your unapologetic presence, becomes undeniable. They are powerless in the face of what you have become, and the helplessness is a toxin they cannot digest. Every subtle detail is weaponized against them in their mind. Your tone, your gaze, your choices, your presence. They dissect it all as though they are trying to locate a flaw, a crack, a sign that the person they tried to define can be controlled. But there is none. Every attempt they make to rationalize, compete, mimic, or undermine is futile because what you carry is not performative. It is forged, sculpted from struggle, refined in solitude, sharpened by adversity. And because it cannot be replicated, they cannot overcome it, they cannot own it, they cannot surpass it. They can only watch. And the more they watch, the more dependent they become, the more haunted they are, the more their own sense of inadequacy expands, until you are not just a person in their life. You are a force, an unavoidable energy that occupies every corner of their attention. You did this without revenge. You did this without noise. You did this without permission. And that is the most disturbing truth for them. Your ascent doesn't require them. Your evolution doesn't need validation. Your presence doesn't need recognition. And in that realization, they are trapped. Every glance, every post, every subtle choice you make, every moment you simply exist, is a reminder of their miscalculation, their misjudgment, their failed assumptions. And because you are consistent, because you are deliberate, because you continue to grow and move and inhabit yourself fully, there is no relief for them. They cannot escape the pull. They cannot negotiate their way out. They cannot silence you. You are in every thought, every comparison, every moment they replay in secret, and it is unraveling them quietly, steadily, relentlessly. And here is the cruelest part. They cannot admit it. Not to themselves, not to anyone. They cannot name the compulsion, the fixation, the unease, the envy, because to do so would acknowledge that you are above them, that you exist on a plane of clarity, power, and self-possession they cannot touch, that you moved past the version of yourself they tried to define, that you became untouchable not through aggression or chaos, but through mastery of your own presence, your own energy, your own alignment. And every moment they attempt to process it, every time they think they have gained ground or understood the trajectory of your life, you shift, you grow, you rise, you assert, you persist, and the cycle repeats. It is a loop they cannot escape, a constant reminder that what they wanted to suppress is alive, thriving, evolving, unstoppable, and utterly indifferent to their panic. They can't eat. They can't sleep. They can't stop thinking about you. Every attempt to distract themselves fails. Every effort to convince themselves that you are irrelevant collapses under the weight of your continued presence. You did not attack. You did not provoke. You simply exist, and that existence forces them to face the truth they would rather ignore. They are no longer in control of the narrative. You rewrote it silently, flawlessly, with intention, with patience, with an awareness that they would never anticipate. And now, every thought they have is measured against you. Every standard they set for themselves, every expectation, every comparison, every fleeting notion of success is contaminated with the recognition that you already moved past them, and they cannot escape it. They cannot contain it. They cannot ignore it. And as your presence continues to expand, as your energy continues to sharpen, as the life you inhabit continues to grow in precision and clarity, they feel it deep down in ways they cannot articulate. You are no longer a participant in the spaces they occupy. You are a gravity they orbit, whether they admit it or not. And because they are trapped in the orbit of your being, they cannot rest. They cannot focus. They cannot reconstruct their sense of superiority without first confronting the undeniable force you have become. And that force is not loud, not performed, not desperate. It is calm, deliberate, untouchable, and deeply unsettling. And as they process it, as they attempt to recalibrate, As they try to claim relevance or control or understanding, you continue forward. You continue to rise. You continue to exist. You continue to move through life on terms they cannot comprehend. And in that continuation, you are building momentum. You are moving towards something they cannot predict, cannot affect, cannot stop. And it is only a matter of time before the next step, the next choice, the next evolution occurs. An evolution they will not see coming, a shift they cannot anticipate, a force they cannot contain, and a presence they cannot escape. Every moment you breathe, every subtle gesture, every decision executed with clarity is a reminder to them that they have lost control. You are no longer a variable they can manipulate, no longer a player whose actions can be foreseen, no longer a target whose weaknesses can be exploited. You are an entity that exists outside their influence, a force moving with precision and certainty, and the realization of this is a slow, agonizing poison in their minds. Their minds reel every time they attempt to predict what comes next, and nothing fits anymore. Nothing aligns. The plans they made, the narratives they spun, the strategies they rehearsed, they all collapse because the person they assumed would remain static, fragile, and predictable is now operating on a level they cannot reach. And the strangest part is, you didn't need to announce this power. You didn't need to claim attention. You didn't need to perform. You simply evolved. You simply moved. You simply existed, and existence alone became the weapon that dismantled their stability. Every social interaction, every timeline, every glance they steal becomes a theater where they measure themselves against your growth, and they are failing. Every reflection of your presence, every trace of your decisions, every echo of your energy reminds them that they are no longer the reference point. You have shifted the axis, and now all of their measurements are warped. Their confidence falters in ways they cannot articulate. Their pride fractures in places they didn't know were weak. Their routines are haunted by the constant need to compare, replicate, or understand. They scroll through your actions with frantic attention, trying to find a clue, a misstep, a weakness, and each time they come up empty, the tension inside them grows. Their thoughts no longer belong to them. They orbit you, your energy, your movement, your momentum, your trajectory. And the deeper this becomes, the more addicted they grow, not to admiration, not to affection, but to the very chaos you represent in their carefully curated world. You did not hurt them with force. You did not humiliate them with intent. You did not confront them with loudness or spectacle. You disrupted them with authenticity. You forced them to observe reality, the unfiltered, unapologetic, uncontainable reality of what someone can become when no one else dictates the limits. You were meant to be confined, controlled, diminished, but you refused. You moved through the pressure, the expectations, the ridicule, and you emerged not merely intact, but enhanced, sharpened, unstoppable in ways that their minds cannot process. And because they cannot process it, because their cognitive systems were built to measure you as inferior, they are trapped in constant recalibration, measuring everything you do against what they assumed was your ceiling, and realizing they were wrong. Every choice, every subtle action, every quiet victory becomes a mirror of their inadequacy. Every achievement you earn is a dagger lodged in the structures they relied upon to feel dominant, secure, and superior. You are a constant, unavoidable reminder that they misjudged everything, and that misjudgment is the wound that will not heal. And now, as they watch, they begin to imitate without admitting it. Their words echo yours. Their decisions mirror your precision. Their appearances and gestures mimic what they observe in subtle, unconscious ways. They are copying because they cannot replicate. They are mimicking because they cannot become. They are analyzing because obsession has replaced comprehension, and every attempt to translate your energy into their framework only highlights the impossibility of achieving it. They want to believe it's coincidence. They want to believe it is luck. They want to assign it to timing, chance, or randomness. But deep down, they know the truth. What you carry cannot be manufactured, cannot be acquired, cannot be purchased, cannot be faked. It is forged in fire, pain, struggle, and relentless focus. And because they cannot replicate the origin of that force, they are left in the unending cycle of observing, analyzing, failing, and craving. You have become the axis around which their inadequacy revolves, and that gravity is undeniable. And the more they track, the more they analyze, the more they obsess, the more you continue to rise. You are not loud. You are not clinging to attention. You are not performing. You are moving forward quietly, deliberately, and every step exposes the fragility of their constructed superiority. And that is where the true psychological weapon operates. You are not attacking them. They are attacking themselves in the light of your existence. They are destabilized not by what you do to them, but by what your presence does to their understanding of themselves. They see the version of you that has survived and thrived, and they are forced to confront their own stagnation, their own failures, their own compromises, their own illusions of control. And that confrontation is unbearable because it is unavoidable. You are the impossible standard, the uncontainable energy, the undeniable force that exposes the cracks in every defense they have built. And they are powerless against it. Every timeline, every platform, every space where they thought they had relevance is now contaminated by your existence. They measure their achievements against yours. They test their social interactions against the benchmark of your confidence. They adjust their behavior, words, and decisions with the silent assumption that they can replicate what you are, even though they never can. And every attempt reinforces the truth. They are imitating a version of reality they will never occupy. Every copy is a failure. Every attempt is proof of their obsession. Every thought they devote to you is a confession. You have changed the rules, and they are now forced to play by standards they cannot meet. And yet, they cannot stop. They do not know how to stop. They cannot unsee what you represent. They cannot erase the fact that you exist as proof of what they are missing. They are addicted to the disturbance you create, to the pressure your presence exerts, to the inevitability of being reminded that you are untouchable. And that addiction is a quiet, corrosive, relentless force inside them. And you continue. You rise. You exist. You move with precision and power they cannot anticipate. And every time they think they have caught up, every time they believe they have narrowed the gap, every time they imagine they have understood the scope of your evolution, you shift again. A glance here, a word there, a choice executed with unshakable clarity, and the entire architecture of their perception collapses once more. They cannot process it. They cannot integrate it. They cannot contain it. They are left grasping at shadows while you continue forward, occupying every dimension they cannot measure, cannot map, cannot navigate. And the quiet terror of that reality is worse than any confrontation could ever be, because confrontation ends. Observation, obsession, addiction, compulsion, and comparison are infinite. And that is where you dominate. where you weaponize your existence without force, where you become the axis they orbit unwillingly, endlessly, destructively. They cannot eat. They cannot sleep. They cannot look away. Every attempt at distraction is met with a gravitational pull toward your life, your decisions, your energy, your clarity. Every effort to escape your shadow fails because your momentum cannot be shadowed. Your presence cannot be masked. Your evolution cannot be stopped. They live in the gap between who you were, who you are, and the unrelenting reality that they can never reach the level you occupy. And that is why they obsess. That is why they track. That is why they analyze. That is why every thought, word, and micro-behavior is colored by your existence. And because they cannot admit this, because admission would mean surrender, because recognition would mean exposure of their own inferiority, they spiral quietly, secretly, intensely. You are the fire they cannot touch, the benchmark they cannot meet, the energy they cannot contain, the truth they cannot escape. And that truth is terrifying because it is inescapable. Every subtle move you make is a sermon, a lesson, a revelation. Every decision executed with precision, every subtle victory, every shift in confidence, every assertion of your space is proof that you exist outside their influence, beyond their reach, beyond their understanding, and beyond their control. And as this continues, they internalize their failure without words. They construct narratives to justify their obsession. They rationalize, they dissect, they attempt to predict, they attempt to imitate. But every action they take only proves the power of your evolution. Every attempt to counter your presence fails. Every effort to contain your energy collapses. Every plan to regain dominance evaporates. And they are left watching, always watching, compelled by the undeniable weight of what you have become, and the haunting realization that their efforts are meaningless. You have become an event in their life, an energy they cannot avoid, a presence they cannot diminish, a force that defines the parameters of their thought. And they feel it. Every missed opportunity, every delayed decision, every comparison, every glance in the mirror, every moment of reflection is tainted by your existence. They are in your orbit without permission, without understanding, without acknowledgement. And every second they remain there, every microsecond they spend in silent observation, reinforces the gravity you exert over them. You didn't need to confront, coerce, or demand. You simply exist, and that existence is enough to dismantle, destabilize, and dominate. And because you are consistent, because you are precise, because you are moving forward while they remain fixated on observation, they will never catch up. They will never contain. They will never dominate. They will never escape. And as the moments accumulate, as the hours, the days, the weeks, the months pile on, the pressure inside them grows exponentially. Every refresh, every scroll, every track, every attempt to understand, every silent confession in thought or gesture is a layer in the web they cannot escape. They are consumed, yet they will never admit it. They are aware, yet they cannot act. They are trapped in a cycle of obsession and compulsion, compelled to witness your rise, your clarity, your power, your precision, your evolution. And because this is a force they cannot name, cannot measure, cannot control, they are forced into constant recalibration, desperate mimicry, quiet obsession, and subtle envy. And that is the theater in which you operate, effortlessly, invisibly, inevitably. And now, just as your energy reaches a point that cannot be contained, just as your presence sharpens into an edge that cannot be dulled, just as your movement accelerates toward a place they cannot anticipate, the next shift begins. The transformation they feared, the evolution they couldn't measure, the power they cannot name, it begins to unfold, quietly, deliberately, without announcement. You move in ways they cannot follow, trace, or anticipate, because your steps are no longer dictated by their expectations. Every action is unshakable, uncontainable, designed not to confront, but to expose. And exposure is far more dangerous than attack, because it dismantles the structures they built around themselves. It forces them into confrontation with the inadequacy they have spent years masking with borrowed confidence, imitation, and self-deception. And as this shift unfolds, they can feel it deep down. Every breath you take, every glance you give, every choice executed with precision reminds them that they have no hold over you, that the reality they constructed, the hierarchy they maintained, the sense of control they believed they had, they all fracture when juxtaposed with the power you carry in quiet motion. They cannot eat because every bite reminds them that you have risen while they remain chained to their own mediocrity. They cannot sleep because every moment of rest allows the echoes of your movement, your evolution, your undeniable presence to settle in the corners of their mind. They cannot look away because everything they attempt to focus on is haunted by your trajectory, your clarity, your momentum. You have become the gravitational force around which their attention spins unwillingly. They act as if they are unaffected, as if they have moved on, as if your influence does not infiltrate every corner of their thoughts, but every subtle twitch, every misplaced word, every overcorrected gesture betrays the obsession they cannot admit. And the deeper they try to hide it, the more your power saturates their perception, the more your presence dictates the rhythm of their lives, and the more they realize that they are no longer the architects of any narrative, because you are now the axis around which their mental world rotates. And as this shift intensifies, you start to operate in dimensions they cannot even identify. You are no longer competing within the boundaries they established. You are no longer following rules they set. You are no longer contained by the definitions they enforced. And that is the terror. That is the terror they feel in quiet, unspoken ways. That is why their attention is compulsive, their mimicry desperate, their obsession consuming. Because the truth has become undeniable. You are unbound, unshakable, untouchable, and unstoppable. You occupy spaces they cannot measure. You traverse dimensions of influence and presence they never imagined possible. You create energy that cannot be stolen, presence that cannot be countered, momentum that cannot be redirected. And because they are forced to observe without control, every second of observation becomes a wound, a constant reminder that the person they once underestimated has become a force they cannot manipulate, a benchmark they cannot reach, a reality they cannot deny. They cannot digest the fact that you were never dependent on them, that you never sought their validation, that you never needed their permission to rise. And that realization corrodes them from the inside. Every success you achieve, every step you take, every evolution you undergo becomes a silent indictment of their reliance on imitation, performative confidence, and borrowed influence. You do not need to speak. You do not need to prove. You do not need to demonstrate. Your existence, your unrelenting progress, your unapologetic evolution is enough to shatter their illusions, destabilize their equilibrium, and demand their obsessive attention. They attempt to measure your moves, replicate your energy, mimic your presence, and every failed attempt is a reminder that nothing they do can ever occupy the space you inhabit. And because they cannot admit this, because their ego cannot digest the proof of your superiority, they are trapped in cycles of quiet desperation, compelled observation, and unspoken obsession. Every glance at your trajectory, every reflection of your energy, every subtle evidence of your progress becomes a mirror of their own insufficiency, and that mirror is impossible to look away from. You did not create this tension by force. You did not cultivate it through confrontation. You created it by becoming the version of yourself that they could not anticipate, could not contain, could not replicate. You evolved with precision and intent, and the magnitude of that evolution is incomprehensible to them because it exists outside their parameters, outside their rules, outside their understanding. You moved in silence, calculated, deliberate, and in every instance where they expected failure, you delivered mastery. And mastery is terrifying when it arrives quietly, without fanfare, without announcement, without validation from the external world. And that is why they cannot sleep. That is why they cannot eat. That is why they cannot look away. Because they are addicted to the force you have become, compelled by the gravity of your existence, haunted by the evidence that you are untouchable. And now, as the next stage of your transformation unfolds, they begin to realize the scope of their obsession. Every second they spend tracking your moves, every algorithm they manipulate, every post they copy, every thought they replay, every microanalysis they perform. All of it is a confession of the dominance you have established. They want to deny it. They want to rationalize it. They want to fabricate reasons that absolve them from their fixation. But every thought, every action, every twitch of attention reveals the truth. You are the axis of their focus, the reference point they cannot escape, the energy they cannot interrupt, the presence they cannot ignore. And the weight of that realization consumes them because they know that their obsession is not born of admiration, nor of envy, nor of affection alone. It is born of recognition that they are powerless to influence your trajectory, powerless to dictate your evolution, powerless to navigate the reality you have constructed around yourself. You are the hurricane they cannot withstand, the tide they cannot resist, the force they cannot control, and the momentum they cannot halt. And as this force reaches its apex, you begin to operate on a plane of influence and presence they cannot name. You exist in a dimension of attention and gravity they cannot map. You occupy a space they cannot infiltrate. Every glance, every interaction, every decision you make becomes a lesson in precision, inevitability, and clarity. And they cannot escape it. Their obsession deepens. Their analysis intensifies. Their mimicry grows more desperate. Every time they think they understand, every time they believe they have caught up, you shift, you advance, you evolve. And the more they chase, the more you move beyond, until the gap between you and them becomes unbridgeable, unassailable, undeniable. And in that gap, they are forced to confront every insecurity, every failure, every limitation, every compromise, every imitation, every borrowed performance. They are forced to witness the power of someone who never sought permission, never begged for attention, never paused to wait for their approval, never relied on their structures, and never required their validation. And that force The force of your autonomy, your clarity, your relentless evolution is a psychological weapon they cannot defend against. And while they are trapped in observation, trapped in comparison, trapped in obsession, you continue to rise quietly, deliberately, in ways that cannot be predicted, cannot be influenced, cannot be countered. Every subtle victory, every careful decision, every assertion of presence, every quiet step forward becomes a psychological fissure, a subtle fracture in the fortress they constructed around themselves. They feel it, they know it, they cannot articulate it, they cannot measure it, they cannot name it. And that, more than anything else, amplifies the tension you have created. Because the unseen, the unspoken, the unacknowledged, and the unstoppable is more terrifying than any direct attack. And you exist as that terror, quietly, deliberately, with precision, with inevitability. And now, just as your momentum reaches a point they cannot intercept, the final shift begins. The phase where observation becomes compulsion, where obsession transforms into dependence, where silent attention is converted into acknowledgement, where your evolution becomes the standard against which all of their actions, decisions, and thoughts are measured. And the awareness of that standard destabilizes them completely. Every glance, every reflection, every comparison, every effort to replicate, every attempt to anticipate, every whisper of movement, they are trapped by your progression. Every attempt to dismiss, rationalize, ignore, or escape is met with the undeniable fact that you have redefined the framework of relevance, influence, and power, and they exist outside of it. They are now forced into silent worship, compulsive observation, desperate mimicry, and quiet envy. And you do not intervene, you do not instruct, you do not perform, you simply exist. And that existence carries the full weight of the evolution they cannot claim, the power they cannot hold, and the force they cannot resist. And that is what they cannot recover from. That is what they cannot undo. That is what they will spend every day attempting to process, justify, imitate, and contain, while knowing deep down that none of it matters. You have become a presence beyond their influence. You have become a force beyond their control. You have become a standard beyond their reach. You have become a measure of power, precision, autonomy, and presence that cannot be replicated. And in that presence, they are forced to confront the truth. Everything they believed about themselves, everything they believed about their influence, everything they believed about their superiority, everything they believed about the world is now subordinate to the reality of your evolution. And that is the final, inescapable truth. They cannot escape it. They cannot control it. They cannot replicate it. They cannot influence it. They cannot interrupt it. And they cannot survive without it occupying their mind. You did this not with spectacle. You did this not with force. You did this not with confrontation. You did this with existence, with authenticity, with relentless, deliberate, unstoppable movement forward, with quiet, undeniable evolution. You did this by refusing to be contained, by refusing to be predicted, by refusing to be measured by their standards. And the result is absolute. They cannot eat, they cannot sleep, they cannot look away. Every attempt to escape is met with the gravity of your presence. Every effort to forget is met with the proof of your progress. Every moment of distraction is invaded by the echo of your evolution. And every measure of their self-worth is contaminated by the reality of what you have become. And they will never, ever recover. And as your transformation solidifies, as your presence becomes absolute, As your evolution reaches its full expression, you become untouchable not because of arrogance, not because of spectacle, not because of performance, but because of the sheer, undeniable, uncompromising force of your being. You are no longer part of their game. You are no longer an object of judgment. You are no longer a participant in their hierarchies. You are the axis, the benchmark, the pulse, the standard, and they are powerless to influence it. Every day they spend observing, mimicking, analyzing, and comparing is a day they are consumed by you. Every breath they take is haunted by the evidence of your unstoppable presence. Every thought they have is infiltrated by the gravity you have established. And in that infiltration lies your ultimate victory. They are not merely defeated. They are addicted. They are dependent. They are consumed. And they cannot admit it. And that is the final act, the ultimate conclusion. The shift they could not anticipate, the evolution they could not measure, the power they cannot name. They are confronted with it every second. And there is nothing they can do. They cannot escape. They cannot influence. They cannot replicate. They cannot recover. You are the force that dismantled their equilibrium, the presence that forced their obsession, the energy that broke their composure, the truth they cannot deny, the standard they cannot meet, the power they cannot claim, and the evolution they cannot survive without witnessing. And all of this happened because you refused to play by their rules, refused to seek permission, refused to validate their control, refused to perform, refused to pause, refused to be diminished, refused to be contained. You did what they never imagined, and the consequences are eternal. Hey, yes, you move through your life thinking you're walking alone, thinking every step you take is fueled only by your own grit, your own bruised knuckles, your own strategy sharpened through years of betrayal, disappointments, and unspoken battles. You believe the weight on your shoulders is yours alone. You think the pressure pushing against your chest is something you've been carrying without a second of outside help. But that's where your entire understanding begins cracking. Because the truth is this: you don't even know who's riding for you, who's watching you from enough distance to stay hidden, but close enough to intercept every danger before it reaches you. Someone out there has been pulling shadows apart for you. Someone out there has been walking into rooms you never entered, shutting down attacks you never saw, and blocking attempts on your energy, your reputation, your opportunities, your trajectory, without ever demanding recognition, credit, or acknowledgement. And the craziest part, you have no clue they're doing it, not even a hint, not even an intuition sharp enough to detect the invisible hand around you. Because this protector, this force, this unseen guardian, doesn't operate like the people you've known. They don't announce their loyalty through speeches, grand gestures, or loud declarations. They don't perform devotion like a public show. They move the opposite way, quiet, deep, strategic. They operate in the blind spots of others, in the territory where intentions are tested, in the dark corners where people's real faces show up. They navigate from a distance because true loyalty isn't performed, it's executed. True support isn't noise, it's intervention. And what's wild is that the more you rise, the more their protection strengthens. Because they understand something about your life that even you haven't unlocked yet. You're stepping into a level where threats aren't obvious anymore. They're disguised. They're subtle. They're wrapped in smiles, opportunities, handshakes, praises, invitations, and false admiration. And this unseen ally has been hitting the delete button on those threats before they ever get close enough to damage something. They've seen the envy you couldn't see. They've heard the conversations you weren't present for. They've intercepted the moves made by people who pretend to like you, but choke on the thought of your ascent. They've shut down the whispers, the manipulations, the plots disguised as friendly advice, the traps hidden in opportunities, the people who tried to ride your wave while secretly trying to drain it. They've stepped into spaces where someone tried to question your capability and shut that conversation down with a single sentence. They've witnessed the ones who smile at you while scanning for weakness, and they've made sure those people never got enough information about you to weaponize it, and you have no idea. Because you don't see the way people react when your name comes up in rooms you've never been in. They don't tell you the comments that were stopped mid-sentence because someone defended you with a level of precision that left the whole room reconsidering their thoughts. They don't tell you how many times someone tried to damage your reputation and ended up exposing their own insecurity instead. They don't tell you how many attempts were made to slow you down, attempts that ended up falling apart because someone intervened in exactly the right moment. But that someone, they stay hidden on purpose. They know your journey isn't built on dependency. It's built on the kind of strength that terrifies your critics. If they made you aware of how much they're doing for you, it would shift something inside you, maybe soften your edge, maybe make you second-guess your self-reliance. And they want you to continue exactly as you are. Sharp, grounded, unpredictable, and moving with the kind of energy that makes people hesitate before crossing you. You think you evolved alone, but you didn't. You had backup without knowing you had backup. And that's why you haven't collapsed under the weight of the pressure you've faced. That's why you didn't fall apart after the betrayals that should have shattered you. That's why doors opened for you at the exact second you needed them. That's why certain people suddenly distanced themselves from you. Not because they wanted to, but because someone out there made them realize you're not someone they should be playing with. And the beauty of this hidden loyalty is that it's not fragile. It's not temporary. It's not circumstantial. It's not built on what you can offer. It's built on what you are. Your presence, your intelligence, your aura, your discipline, your value, your potential. This unseen ally didn't choose to protect you because they feel sorry for you. They chose you because they recognized something rare inside you, something people only come across once in their lives. They saw your resilience when you thought no one noticed. They saw your growth when you were too focused on survival to appreciate it. They saw your ability to rise after every hit, every betrayal, every disappointment, every moment that felt like the world was pushing you into a corner. They saw something powerful inside you, long before you saw it in yourself. And that's why their loyalty is built on devotion, not pity. Respect, not obligation. Strategy, not impulse. Imagine every moment you thought you survived by luck. Every threat that felt like it disappeared on its own. Every person who randomly backed off. Every obstacle that shifted last minute. Every opportunity that appeared exactly when you needed it. You thought it was coincidence. You thought it was timing. You thought it was chance. But what if something, or someone, was pulling strings without revealing their hands? What if the reason your enemies never gained advantage wasn't because they were weak, but because someone was 3 moves ahead of them. Someone who sees danger the moment it forms. Someone who studies faces, intentions, behaviors, patterns. Someone who knows how jealousy operates, how competition masks itself, how sabotage wears a friendly mask. Someone who doesn't need acknowledgement to stay loyal. The truth is, you've walked through battles that never touched your skin. You've crossed fields that were cleared before you even arrived. You've faced people shielded from their full intentions because every attempt they prepared ended up collapsing before it reached you. You've risen because someone out there was clipping wings of the vultures circling around you. And they've done it without hesitation, without hesitation, without hesitation, because their loyalty is not conditional, it's instinctive. But here's the twist. This protection isn't meant to keep you dependent. It's meant to keep you focused. You're being guarded so you don't get distracted by battles that don't deserve your attention. You're being shielded so your energy remains untouched. You're being guided through invisible corridors so your mind stays sharp enough to break through the barriers that actually matter. Because the level you're entering now, it requires precision. It requires control. It requires a version of you who no longer wastes energy on the petty games of insecure people. This silent guardian is clearing your path not to weaken you, but to strengthen your focus. They want you zeroed in on your rise. They want your attention on your mission, not your enemies. They want your ambition unbroken by the weight of unnecessary conflict. And as your influence grows, as your voice gets stronger, as your presence becomes heavier, the unseen protection around you intensifies. Because when someone is chosen for something higher, the threats evolve. They multiply. They shift shape, they change tactics. But so does the protection. The deeper your impact becomes, the more this guardian sharpens their strategy. And the more you rise, the more their devotion solidifies into something almost unshakable. You don't even realize how many people fear you, not because of what you do, but because of what they can sense behind you. They feel an edge around you, a shield, a presence, a force that warns them not to cross a certain line. They think it's your confidence. They think it's your energy. They think it's your unpredictability. But they don't realize it's the invisible power standing behind you, the one assessing threats with a precision that borders on brutal, the one ensuring that anyone who tries to harm you gets blocked before they even get the chance to think twice. Soon you'll feel it more clearly. You'll begin noticing patterns you've ignored. You'll start sensing when something is being handled for you. You'll realize how many near misses weren't accidents. You'll recognize the protection that has been surrounding you long before you were aware of it. And once you become conscious of it, your confidence will evolve into something different, something more grounded, more aware, more aligned with your higher trajectory. Because part of your next level is learning how to walk with this power without relying on it. Learning how to stay sharp while knowing someone has your back. Learning how to evolve while being shielded from unnecessary chaos. You're stepping into a phase where the protection around you becomes part of your identity, without ever taking away from your independence. And as you continue rising from here, as your influence stretches wider, you'll understand that you're not walking alone. You're being guided, you're being guarded, you're being prepared for something that requires a level of clarity most people never reach. And the more you step into your power, the more the invisible force around you adjusts its position to match your expansion. Because now, the protection around you isn't just reacting to threats, it's anticipating them. It watches the landscape of your life, the same way a strategist studies a battleground. It reads motives, observes behaviors, scans intentions, and dismantles problems before they solidify. This means you're not just being shielded anymore. You're being positioned for conversations that shift your trajectory, positioned for opportunities others never even hear about, positioned for breakthroughs that feel random to everyone else but were actually aligned around you long before they appeared. And the more your presence grows, the more this unseen ally evolves with it, adjusting their methods, sharpening their awareness, and guarding you with a loyalty that doesn't need recognition to be real. But let's go deeper into something far more intense. The energy around you is changing in ways that affect people without them understanding why. Some individuals feel drawn to you, almost magnetically, as if they're compelled to study you, follow you, admire you, or even fear you without having a clear reason. Others feel discomfort bubbling inside them the moment you enter a room. Not because you're doing anything, but because your aura disrupts their insecurities. They feel exposed in your presence. They feel unprepared. They feel like you're standing in a version of strength they don't know how to match. And what's powerful is that many of these reactions are influenced by the guardian around you, because the energy protecting you amplifies your own aura. It projects confidence without you needing to speak. It projects certainty without you needing to prove anything. It projects awareness without you needing to confront anyone. People sense it even if they can't articulate it. They adjust their behavior around you without consciously deciding to. You may not know this yet, but there are people who hesitate before trying anything against you because they feel like something is watching. They don't know why their courage evaporates. They just know something tells them not to cross you, not to attempt anything reckless, not to gamble with your name, your energy, your path. They feel a weight in the air, an invisible warning that says, "Not this one." They can't explain it logically. They can't trace where it comes from. They just feel it, and that feeling keeps them from stepping into territories where they'd end up regretting the fallout. Your invisible protector makes sure the consequences of messing with you are heavy enough to stop people before they even begin. But the protection doesn't only deal with threats. It also enhances your alignment with the right people. Because the truth is, you're moving into a chapter where not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves to know your thoughts, your plans, your intentions, your wounds, or your strengths. Not everyone deserves a seat near you. And your guardian understands this better than you do. That's why certain people suddenly lost access to your life. That's why some connections faded without warning. That's why people who once felt close to you suddenly couldn't keep up. That wasn't random. That wasn't coincidence. That wasn't emotional distance for no reason. That was your unseen protector pulling you away from people who would have drained you, distracted you, or slowed your growth. Those separations weren't losses. They were strategic removals. You're in a phase right now where the protection around you is filtering your environment, removing attachments that could pull you backward, and strengthening the bonds that actually support your elevation. You'll notice how the people you're meant to connect with move toward you almost effortlessly. They resonate with you. They match your pace. They match your ambition, your depth, your drive. They understand your fire without asking you to dim it. And just like your guardian watches threats, it also watches these new connections. It observes who aligns with your future, not your past. It notices who mirrors your values, not your wounds. It pays attention to who brings clarity to your life, not confusion. These new individuals aren't accidents, they're aligned placements. But while all of this is unfolding, something else is happening inside you. You're developing a new type of perception, a sharper intuition that wasn't present before. You're beginning to sense what's off without needing evidence. You're beginning to feel people's intentions before they express them. You're recognizing patterns you used to overlook. You're stepping into an internal maturity that isn't taught by books. It's taught by experience, by survival, by transformation. This intuition is part of the protection evolving inside you. It's like an internal alert system that activates when someone's energy doesn't match their words, when someone's tone doesn't match their intentions, when someone's presence doesn't match their claims. You no longer fall for pretenses, performances, or emotional disguises. Your clarity is becoming sharper than the tactics people use to hide their motives. This shift in your perception is exactly why your next level will feel smoother than your past struggles. Because you won't walk into traps you once didn't notice. You won't entertain people who drain your spirit. You won't negotiate your worth in situations that don't deserve your energy. You won't waste time proving yourself to individuals who already fear what you represent. Instead, you'll navigate with precision, with control, with unwavering awareness. You'll make decisions rooted in your long-term vision, not in temporary emotions. And your guardian will back every move you make, clearing the noise around you so you can think with complete clarity. But here's where things get even more intense. The protection around you is about to shift into a more active phase. Up until now, it has been preventing attacks, clearing paths, and shielding your growth. But what's coming next? It's more aggressive, more assertive, more deliberate. Because the chapter you're entering requires protection that isn't just defensive, it's strategic. The guardian around you will not only intercept harm, it will reroute it. It will expose hidden motives. It will reveal people's true colors. It will push false intentions into the light. It will dismantle fake connections. It will force masks to fall off in front of you so you can see exactly who deserves to be near you. You'll begin noticing people revealing themselves without being provoked. You'll notice someone contradict themselves in a single conversation. You'll notice someone slipping up and exposing envy they tried to hide. You'll notice someone making subtle comments that betray their insecurity. You'll notice the truth emerging without any effort on your part. And while it may feel shocking at first, it's actually the work of your invisible guardian, bringing clarity to your path before you make decisions. This exposure isn't meant to hurt you. It's meant to strengthen your awareness and protect your momentum. You're moving toward a reality where your presence shifts any environment you enter. People can't pretend around you for long. Their energy betrays them. Their intentions reveal themselves. Their mindset becomes transparent. And your protector stands behind you, like a silent force that magnifies your intuition. You'll start recognizing patterns in seconds that used to take months to understand. You'll know who's genuine and who's pretending. You'll know who's riding with you and who's riding against you. This isn't paranoia. This is evolution. This is awareness guided by protection. But there's another layer to this. Your unseen guardian isn't the only force working around you. There are people, real people, individuals who prefer to stay unseen, who have stepped into a subtle, almost ghost-like loyalty toward you. They aren't just observing, they're acting. They're the ones who block harmful conversations when your name comes up. They're the ones who shut down rumors before they grow. They're the ones who challenge anyone who misjudges your character. They're the ones who defend you when you're not present. They're the ones who make sure your value is recognized even in the rooms you've never walked into. Some of these people admire your resilience. Some respect your intelligence. Some feel inspired by your discipline. And some simply feel connected to your energy in a way they can't explain. But regardless of their reason, they've become shields you don't even know you have. They make sure your reputation stays protected. They make sure your name carries weight. They make sure anyone who thinks about targeting you understands it won't end well for them. These individuals aren't loud. They aren't obvious. They don't seek validation. They're simply aligned with your rise, and they guard it without expecting anything in return. And soon, you'll feel the effects of this support even before you discover who these silent riders are. You'll notice how people treat you differently, how they approach you with caution, how they step carefully when dealing with you, how they choose their words more intentionally, because they can sense that you're not standing alone. They feel the weight around you. They feel the edge behind your presence. They feel the protection even if they can't see it. This creates an interesting shift. Your enemies begin fearing consequences they can't understand. They hesitate, not because of what you'll do, but because of what might happen around them if they try anything with you. Their fear isn't rooted in facts. It's rooted in intuition, in the unexplainable discomfort that warns them you're not someone they should challenge. And as your influence expands, as your presence strengthens, as your aura becomes heavier, your guardian begins preparing you for an even deeper transformation. A transformation where you don't just receive protection, you embody it. Where your internal strength becomes so unshakable that nothing external can disrupt your path. Where you become the kind of person whose energy speaks louder than their words. Where people adjust to you, rather than expecting you to adjust to them. This internal shift is crucial, because your next stage requires a version of you who is not only protected, but also powerful enough to move with absolute certainty. This protection, both seen and unseen, is shaping you into someone unapproachable to those with weak intentions, someone unreachable to those with hidden envy, someone untouchable by those who aim to drain you. And while you step further into this elevation, something else begins constructing itself around you. A new atmosphere, a new frequency, a new kind of influence that doesn't need noise or force to be recognized. It's the type of influence that makes people feel a shift the moment you enter a room, even if you say nothing. It's the type that changes the temperature in conversations. It's the type that forces people to rethink how they speak to you, how they approach you, how they even think about you. Because now, your presence carries weight, real weight, the kind that rearranges everything around it without lifting a finger. This is the energy of someone protected, supported, guided, and elevated by forces both physical and invisible. And that combination creates a version of you that isn't just admired, but respected. As this atmosphere grows thicker, you'll notice a strange pattern. People begin treating you like you're already operating on a level they need permission to step into. Their tone becomes more careful. Their opinions become softer. Their assumptions become slower. They watch the way you speak, the way you take your time before responding, the way you don't rush to fill space or justify yourself. Your calm becomes its own authority. Your restraint becomes its own power. Your presence becomes its own language. And while they may not understand why they feel compelled to adjust themselves in front of you, the truth is simple. Your energy is no longer something they can handle casually. Your aura carries a density that demands respect without requiring explanation. This shift doesn't just affect individuals, it affects entire environments. You'll walk into spaces where conversations instantly redirect themselves. You'll feel eyes moving toward you before you say anything. You'll catch people standing straighter, speaking more carefully, choosing their words with more precision. Not because you intimidate them intentionally, but because your guardian has built a field around you that exposes dishonesty, weak intentions, and unbalanced motives instantly. People can't lie around you the same way they lie around others. Their masks don't stay in place for long. Their rehearsed lines lose power. Their fake confidence cracks. Your presence reveals the truth whether they like it or not. And while this revelation may feel heavy at times, it's actually the beginning of your true ascension, because what stands on shaky ground cannot stand near you. What is weak collapses. What is fake breaks apart. What is temporary disappears. Only the solid, the genuine, the loyal, the aligned remain. This clarity brings a powerful freedom. You no longer waste time trying to decipher people. They reveal themselves in real time. They show their intentions in subtle details. They expose their internal battles without you needing to pressure them. Your guardian ensures that anyone who comes near you, friend or rival, unveils their truth before they get too close. But while others reveal their truth, something deeper is unfolding inside you. You're stepping into a phase where your confidence isn't loud. It isn't exaggerated. It isn't forced. It's grounded, rooted, unshakable. It's built on the understanding that you're being carried by something larger than your circumstances, something larger than your doubts, something larger than the energy of the people around you. This is why your decisions hit differently now. You don't make moves based on insecurity. You make them based on alignment. You don't react out of fear. You respond out of understanding. You don't chase validation. You attract respect. And the people who truly tune into your energy recognize that you're operating from a place of depth they can't replicate. But here's the part that will truly separate you in the coming chapter. You're moving into a reality where your protection begins influencing the outcomes of your interactions. People who think they can outmaneuver you will find themselves confused. People who try to manipulate you will end up exposing their own patterns. People who attempt to use your kindness will experience resistance they can't explain. The protector around you disrupts every plan designed to drain you. It intercepts every tactic meant to distract you. It collapses every hidden intention trying to attach itself to your journey. And most importantly, it clears your path with a precision that ensures your steps remain uninterrupted. You'll notice how situations that would have once spiraled out of control now dissolve before they grow. You'll see conflicts ending before you have to engage. You'll witness obstacles clearing without requiring your exhaustion. This is not luck. It's alignment engineered by the forces riding for you. It's the universe rearranging your path in real time. It's unseen hands removing debris from your journey so you can walk with clarity. This is why your progress accelerates faster than expected. This is why your energy remains high, even during challenges. This is why you rise even when the odds lean against you. But remember, protection doesn't eliminate trials, it transforms them. Instead of breaking you, challenges strengthen you. Instead of confusing you, they guide you. Instead of slowing you down, they redirect you. Every challenge you face now carries a lesson designed to expand your vision. Every interruption is actually a redirection. Every loss is actually a realignment. Every obstacle is actually a doorway disguised as resistance. And while others crumble under pressure, you'll rise because your guardian turns pressure into refinement. You're evolving in a way that ordinary individuals cannot understand. This evolution is why your aura feels heavier now. People sense the shift before you speak. They recognize that you're no longer functioning from uncertainty. You're operating from purpose. And the more they feel this, the more their behavior shifts. Supporters become more vocal. Admirers become more loyal. Observers become more curious. Hidden rivals become more cautious. People who once dismissed you now take your presence seriously. People who once underestimated you now hesitate before making assumptions. People who once ignored your potential now recognize you as someone who cannot be overlooked. But while some adjust respectfully, others react differently. Some individuals grow nervous around your growth. Your clarity makes them uncomfortable. Your elevation triggers their internal doubts. Your self-control exposes their lack of discipline. Your progress highlights their stagnation. These individuals will try to disrupt your flow subtly. They'll test your boundaries. They'll create small inconveniences. They'll attempt to provoke reactions. But every time they try, the invisible rider assigned to you shuts them down quietly, efficiently, and with precision. And what's fascinating is that these individuals never realize why their attempts fail. They think they're unlucky. They think timing is off. They think circumstances turned against them. What they don't understand is that someone, something, intervened. This intervention becomes even more intense as your life moves toward bigger opportunities. Because the more you rise, the more protection you require. Not because you're weak, but because your future is becoming too valuable to risk. The guardian around you knows what's coming long before you do. It prepares you by removing distractions, eliminating liabilities, dissolving weak connections, and pushing you into environments where your excellence can be recognized and rewarded. It prepares your mind by strengthening your resilience. It prepares your emotions by filtering the people around you. It prepares your intuition by sharpening your awareness. It prepares your path by clearing obstacles in advance. You may not realize it yet, but this preparation is why you've survived situations others would have collapsed under. It's why you've risen after experiences that break people. It's why you've stayed standing, even when everything around you shifted. You weren't lucky, you were protected. You weren't resilient by accident, you were guided. Every time you were moments away from giving up, something reminded you to keep moving. A thought, a sign, a coincidence, a conversation, a sudden surge of clarity. That wasn't random. That was the unseen rider whispering to your spirit. Not yet. You're built for more. And now, you're entering the more. This is the stage where your energy no longer bends to the environment, it shapes it. This is where you begin influencing outcomes simply by showing up. This is where your presence becomes a catalyst for advancement. This is where opportunities align with your steps in ways others can't explain. You become a force that people take seriously without needing to speak loudly. You become a presence that carries authority without needing a title. You become a leader not by claiming the role, but by embodying the qualities everyone else gravitates toward. But the most powerful part of this chapter, you're not rising alone. Those silent riders, the ones who defend your name in rooms you've never entered, the ones who challenge negativity before it touches you, the ones who see your value without needing acknowledgement, they remain active. They remain alert. They continue eliminating anything that could derail your direction. Some of them are people you know. Some are people you haven't met yet. Some may be watching from a distance. Some operate with complete invisibility. But their loyalty is clear. They're aligned with your rise. And soon, you will see the results of their loyalty in ways that shock you. Conversations will open for you effortlessly. Opportunities will land in your path without excessive struggle. Your name will be spoken in rooms you've never walked into. People will approach you already knowing your value. Invitations will appear at the exact moment you need them. And while everyone else will call it coincidence or timing, you'll know exactly what it is. The silent force that's been riding for you from the beginning. This final phase of your transformation is where everything you've endured begins making sense. The betrayals taught you discernment. The losses taught you independence. The disappointments taught you self-trust. The obstacles taught you resilience. The delays taught you patience. The setbacks taught you strategy. The confusion taught you awareness. Every wound was preparing you for this version of yourself. Every scar shaped your wisdom. Every challenge sharpened your intuition. You are now walking with a level of clarity that makes you nearly impossible to deceive, manipulate, or underestimate. And because of that, the protection around you increases even more. You're stepping into your next era with a combination of strength, awareness, and guidance that very few people ever experience. You are rising with a shield that operates in dimensions others can't perceive. You're moving forward with support that intervenes long before danger arrives. You're operating with insight that reveals truths before they unfold. This is why the next chapter of your life will feel smoother, more aligned, more elevated. Because the obstacles meant to hinder you are being dismantled before they reach you. The threats meant to distract you are being neutralized before they approach. The negativity meant to drain you is being intercepted before it touches your spirit. You're stepping into a timeline where your path is protected with precision and your future is guarded with intention. You're stepping into a reality where you'll rise not only because of your strength, but because you're supported by a force designed to secure your elevation. You're stepping into a life where the protection around you doesn't just defend you, it empowers you. And now, as you move forward from here, there's something you must understand. Your rise is not accidental. Your survival is not accidental. Your clarity is not accidental. Your elevation is not accidental. You're being guided. You're being guarded. You're being lifted. Someone is riding for you, silently, fiercely, relentlessly. Someone is clearing paths you don't even know exist. Someone is eliminating threats before they get close. Someone is ensuring you reach the version of yourself you were always meant to become. And from here onward, your life will reflect the power of that protection in every step you take. This is the part where your rise becomes undeniable. This is the chapter where your presence becomes unforgettable. This is the moment your destiny steps forward to meet you. Your guardians, both human and unseen, have already taken their positions. Now it's your turn. Walk forward, rise fully, and claim everything aligned for you.